Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Let me tell you a story that begins not with love, but with a broken key in a front door. Part 1. The Tooth of the Lock. It snapped in half. The key. Just like that. No dramatic twist. No forced turn. It just gave up. I stood there on the porch, staring at the jagged metal in my palm like it had betrayed me too. I didn't even have the energy to curse. Just stood there like an idiot while the wind whipped through my thin hoodie. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. And I hadn't been home in 3 days. Inside that house, our house, was everything I owned. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a museum exhibit of someone else's life. A better version of me. One who didn't hesitate. One who didn't cry in parked cars. One who didn't walk away from everything, only to come crawling back. And now, standing on that porch like a ghost, I was locked out. Of course I was. I sat down on the top step. My thighs were shaking. I think it was adrenaline. Or fear. Or shame. Maybe all three. I had made a decision. A big one. I was going to leave Trina. Just walk out. No fight. No final speech. I had written the note. I had deleted the photos. I had mapped out a route to nowhere. A lake house I'd booked under a fake name. My boss thought I was on a retreat. Trina thought I was visiting my cousin who doesn't even exist. But I came back. Because of one call. Her call. It came while I was sitting in that rented cabin 2 states away, staring at my phone like it might give me answers it didn't have. When I picked up, I expected anger. I expected screaming. Instead, she said 5 words that made my spine go cold. I think they know everything. No hello. No where are you. Just that. Like we were already in the middle of a movie and I'd missed the first act. I didn't respond. She said my name once, like it was a question. Then silence. Then the call ended. And I drove all night to get back. Now here I was. Locked out. With half a key, no courage, and no idea what they meant. Neighbors passed. Dogs barked. The air smelled like wet mulch and leftover summer. And me? I just sat there, heart pounding, ears ringing, wondering, what the hell did she do? And who the hell was they? The locksmith gave me a strange look when I told him I didn't have ID. I mumbled something about leaving my wallet inside and hoping my wife would come home soon. He bought it. Or maybe he didn't care. Either way, 20 minutes later I was back inside a house that felt like a crime scene even though nothing had technically happened. Yet, everything was in place. The couch blanket was still crumpled on the left armrest where I always left it. My half-finished coffee mug sat on the windowsill like it had been waiting for me. But something felt staged. Like someone had walked through the room, pausing, deciding whether to disturb anything, and then choosing not to. That eerie kind of stillness that doesn't come from peace, but from fear. I didn't call Trina. She hadn't tried me again since that message. I wasn't even sure if she knew I'd come back. I wandered through the kitchen slowly, scanning the counters, the fridge, the floor, nothing out of place. Until I turned toward the hallway. There were muddy footprints on the tile. Just a few, leading from the front door to the hallway, then vanishing. The front door had been locked, and no windows were broken. The footprints weren't mine. I hadn't been here for days. And Trina? She always took her heels off at the door. I followed them in silence. Down the hallway, toward the guest room, the one we barely used. My breath caught in my throat. That door was closed. We never closed it. Ever. I stood there, listening. Nothing. I pressed my ear to the wood. Still nothing. Just when I told myself it was all in my head, I reached for the doorknob. It turned too easily. The room was dark. I stepped in and flipped the light. Empty. No one there. Nothing moved. The bed was made, the windows shut. But on the desk, there was something I hadn't seen in years. My old cell phone. The one I lost on our 3rd anniversary trip. The one Trina swore fell into the lake when we went kayaking. It was sitting there, plugged in, charged, and vibrating. No caller ID. Just a blinking message on the screen. They know. I backed out of the room, my hands cold, heart hammering. This wasn't just about an affair. This was something else. Something buried. And I had just walked straight back into it. I didn't touch the phone. I just stared at it, the same way you'd stare at a snake coiled in the middle of your hallway. It wasn't the kind of fear that makes you scream or run. It was the slower, heavier kind. The kind that seeps into your spine and tells you this isn't just unusual. It's wrong on a level you can't explain yet. Trina told me that phone was gone. I remember the day clearly. Our anniversary, that lake cabin, the way she cried when she said it slipped off the dock. I bought her a new one that night, didn't even question it. She looked me dead in the eyes, kissed my cheek, and said she was sorry. And now here it was, fully charged, vibrating, like it never left. I finally picked it up. The message was gone. Just a blank lock screen. I opened the call log. No numbers. I checked texts. Empty. Photos. Nothing. Like it had been factory reset except for that one haunting vibration that screamed, "They know." I knew I hadn't imagined it. My fingers were still trembling from it. Suddenly, a thought hit me hard. Was she here recently? Had Trina come back while I was gone? Why would she leave this? Was it a warning or a setup? I rushed to our bedroom and yanked open her nightstand drawer. Nothing had changed. Same generic jewelry, the sleep mask she never wore, a bottle of lavender lotion I always hated the smell of. Then I saw it, wedged behind a stack of old birthday cards, a second phone. Smaller, black, cheap. A burner. I didn't even have to power it on to know what it was. I had always convinced myself I was being paranoid. That her absences, the locked bathroom doors, the nights she stayed at showings were just part of her job. That the lipstick stains on coffee lids weren't hers. That the tension in the air was mine, not hers. But this was confirmation. She had a secret phone. And worse, she had two phones I didn't know about. My body felt numb. Not in that poetic way people write about. I mean literally. My legs were cold, my scalp tingled, and I was sweating through my shirt. I sat down on the edge of the bed, both phones in my lap, and I realized I didn't know the woman I'd been living with for a decade. I didn't know who she was talking to. I didn't know what she meant when she said, "They know everything." But I knew one thing. If someone was watching her, they were probably watching me too. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in our bed, in the house that no longer felt like mine, with two silent phones beside me and 1,000 questions trying to choke each other out in my brain. Trina still hadn't called again. No texts, no emails, no knocking at the door. Just that one cryptic message. "I think they know everything." And now, with two phones and footprints in the hallway, I was starting to believe her. Around 3 a.m., I got out of bed. Not because I wanted to, but because something was bothering me. A tight itch behind my eyes that wouldn't let me rest. I went back to the guest room where I'd found the first phone. I don't know what I expected, maybe to find it gone or replaced. But it was still there. Quiet now. Still. I picked it up and unlocked it again. This time, instead of scrolling through nothing, I opened the photo gallery and tried a trick I'd read about once. Searching for hidden files. To my surprise, it worked. A folder popped up. Unnamed. Empty looking. But when I tapped it, there were 5 images inside. All blurry. All taken from strange angles. Through windows. Between car seats. And all of them had one thing in common. One was me taking out the trash. Another of me at the gas station. One showed me on the porch with my head in my hands. I stared at them, sick to my stomach. These weren't casual pictures. They were surveillance. But the last photo was different. It was in our living room. The angle was high, maybe from the stairs. In the center of the frame was Trina. And next to her, a man. Sitting close. His hand was on her knee, and her face was turned toward him, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. He wasn't someone I recognized. Late 30s maybe. Buzz cut. Wearing a dark jacket. But what hit me wasn't just the intimacy, it was the timestamp. It was from 4 days ago. The same day she said she was with her mother in Philadelphia. I dropped the phone. Literally. It hit the carpet and bounced under the bed. I just stood there, swaying, breathing like I had just run a mile uphill. This wasn't an affair. It was a cover-up. And someone, maybe even him, had been watching me for longer than I realized. By the time the sun started rising, I hadn't moved from the hallway. I just sat there, knees pulled in, palms sweating, heart thudding, watching the sliver of light creep under the front door like it might carry answers. But it didn't. Nothing did. Not the 2 phones. Not the photographs. Not even the voice in my head trying to convince me I was overreacting. I kept telling myself I should leave again. Just walk out, drive somewhere, block Trina's number, and never look back. But I couldn't. Not with questions rotting inside me like mold in the walls. What did she mean when she said they know everything? Who was that man in our living room? And why did someone take photos of me like I was a threat? Around 9 a.m., a knock at the door made me jump like I'd been electrocuted. I peeked through the peephole. Nobody. Just the blur of morning haze and a row of mailboxes. But when I opened the door, a small box sat on the mat. No name. No return address. Just a plain brown package, roughly the size of a shoebox, sealed with cheap tape. I didn't even hear the mail truck. Had someone dropped it off by hand? Against every survival instinct I thought I had, I picked it up and brought it inside. I didn't go full movie dramatic. No rubber gloves, no wooden spoon to pry it open. I just sat at the kitchen table and carefully peeled the tape back. Inside, wrapped in a thin layer of plastic and paper towel, was an envelope and a flash drive. The envelope had one word written in sharp, shaking letters. Watch. That's it. No name. No date. Just that one word. I pulled out my laptop, ignoring the sick feeling climbing my throat, and plugged in the drive. A single video file appeared. No title, no details. Just a timestamp. 06_22_7 p.m. MP4. I pressed play. At first, it was grainy. Security footage, maybe? The camera pointed at a dim hotel hallway. Nothing moved for a few seconds. Then Trina appeared. She was walking fast, looking over her shoulder, wearing a long gray coat I hadn't seen before. Then the man, him, stepped into frame. He caught up to her, grabbed her wrist. She turned, said something. He yanked her close. And then she kissed him. Not like someone afraid. Not like someone being blackmailed. Like someone who meant it. I paused the video. Not because I'd seen enough, but because I finally understood. She didn't fall into this. She walked into it, willingly. All of it. The secret phones. The lies. The stranger in our house. The surveillance. This wasn't something that happened to her. She chose this. And suddenly, I couldn't tell if that made it better or so much worse. I watched the rest of the video with my jaw clenched and my fingers twitching over the laptop keys. After the kiss, they both walked down the hallway and disappeared into a room. The number on the door read 227. I sat in silence for a while after it ended, staring at the grainy freeze frame, trying to convince myself it was a mistake, that the shadows made it hard to see, that maybe it wasn't even her. But it was. I'd memorized her posture, her hair, the way she tucked her chin when nervous. This wasn't a clone or a deep fake or a misunderstanding. It was Trina. And whatever world she'd been living in without me, this man, these rooms, the secret phones, it wasn't new. She'd just been better at hiding it than I'd imagined. I took a walk. I had to. I couldn't breathe in that house. Every corner felt like it whispered something I didn't want to hear. I walked to the park nearby, sat on the farthest bench facing away from the playground, and tried to think. But I couldn't. Because the second I sat down, my phone rang. Not the burner. Not the cabin phone. My real one. The one I hadn't touched since I left days ago. The screen showed no caller ID. I hesitated, staring at it like it might explode. Then I answered. Silence. Then, you shouldn't have come back, Clyde. It was her. Trina. But her voice was lower than usual. Controlled. No panic. No crying. Just steady. I didn't say anything. I waited. You don't understand what you've stepped into, she said. You were supposed to be gone for good. Gone for good? Who was in the video? I asked, my voice cracked like old wood. She went quiet. Then a sigh. I didn't want you to find that. That wasn't meant for you. I live in that house, I said, rising to my feet now. I slept in that bed. You lied to me for how long, Trina? Who is he? What the hell is going on? Then she said something that froze every muscle in my body. You were never supposed to be part of this. I laughed. A dry, pitiful, almost hysterical sound. I'm your husband. No, she whispered. You were the story. You were my alibi. The line disconnected. I stood in the middle of that park, phone pressed to my ear, surrounded by birds and kids and sunlight, and felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. She didn't love me. She didn't cheat. It was worse. I was part of something, and I didn't even know what it was. After that call, I couldn't go back to the park bench. I couldn't go anywhere, really. I just walked. Around the block. Past the same mailbox 4 times. Through alleys I'd never noticed before. I didn't have a destination. I just needed the world to feel real again. Because Trina's voice still echoed in my head. You were the story. You were my alibi. What did that even mean? The wind picked up as I returned home, and something felt heavier than before. Not just my limbs. The air inside the house itself. I shut the door behind me and stood in silence, waiting for some kind of noise, footsteps, a vibration, a voice. Nothing. I went back to the kitchen and stared at the package again. The envelope with the word watch still lay beside the flash drive. I noticed something strange. The inside of the cardboard box had faint pen marks, scribbled words. I pulled the box apart carefully and found, on the inner flap, written in tiny handwriting, "It's not the only one." My stomach dropped. Not the only video? Not the only box. I ran upstairs. I'd torn this house apart for less before. I could do it again. Closets, drawers, under the mattress, inside old shoes. And then I remembered the attic. Trina never went up there. Too dusty, she said. Too cramped. I hadn't been up in years myself. But something pulled me there now. A pressure in the chest that said, if there were answers, they were above me. I pulled the cord and climbed the creaking ladder into the attic. Darkness and insulation greeted me. Old boxes of tax files, holiday decorations, a torn beanbag from college, and one locked trunk I didn't recognize. It was black, metal, and newer than anything else up there. I didn't have a key, but I didn't need one. I grabbed a crowbar from the garage and forced the latch open. Inside wasn't money, or drugs, or weapons. Inside were files, documents, photos, dozens of them, and right on top, a photo of me, sitting in our living room, working on my laptop, time-stamped, dated, cataloged. Beneath it, another photo, a man I didn't recognize, shaking Trina's hand in front of an office building. Another photo of Trina, at a conference I never knew she attended, standing beside the same man from the hallway footage. And then, buried under the folders, a name tag. Clyde M. Larson. My name. But not my handwriting. Not my company. My head was spinning. That was my name, but not my life. And I realized something I never considered before. What if this wasn't just about Trina cheating? What if it was about me not being who I thought I was? I didn't leave the attic for hours. I read every file, every page. I pieced together fragments of a story that had been hidden in plain sight. My story, apparently. I wasn't just Trina's husband. I was a placeholder in something larger, something orchestrated. A backstory. A decoy. The documents told me that the man in the photos, his name was Randall Kerr, was under federal investigation. For years, he'd used shell companies and fake identities to move funds through real estate deals. Trina's company was one of them. And my name? My life. It had been tied to one of those paper trails. My online presence, my ID, even our marriage certificate. It was all part of a profile she could present if ever questioned. She wasn't just hiding from me. She was protecting herself. That's why I was never allowed in her office. Why I never met her bosses. Why so much of our life had felt distant. But there was one more twist. Inside a smaller folder at the bottom of the trunk was a letter. Handwritten. From Trina. It started with my name. Not Clyde the asset, not Clyde the cover, just Clyde. The man who brought her a Twix bar at a hospital vending machine. The man who believed in her before any of this existed. In the letter, she told me she'd been trying to escape Randall for over a year. That he had threatened her if she didn't keep him off law enforcement's radar. That marrying someone quiet, someone invisible, as she wrote, and building a life with him, gave her a cover. But she never expected to love me. I know what I did, the letter ended. And I know it doesn't change the damage. But if you're reading this, it means you were brave enough to look. You were always stronger than you knew. I'm sorry, but I never lied about how I felt about you. It should have made me angrier, but it didn't. I sat in the attic, light creeping in through the slats, holding that letter, and I forgave her. Not because she deserved it, but because I needed to. I wasn't going to let this mess define me. I wasn't going to let someone else's lies write the rest of my story. I didn't disappear after that. I didn't go on a rampage or spiral into darkness. I took that letter, those files, and I went to the right people. Quietly. Legally. 3 months later, I was living in a quiet coastal town under my real name. My real name. Not Clyde. That was part of the mask. My true identity had been buried under layers of fake documents. But now, I was rebuilding. From scratch. Authentically. And for the first time in a decade. I felt real. Thank you for listening to Clyde's incredible journey here on Reddit Confessions. Sometimes the biggest betrayals don't end with revenge. They end with rediscovery. Now it's your turn. What's a historical moment or real-life event that completely changed someone's identity? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear it. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Reddit Confessions for more unforgettable stories.